Good morning, everyone. We welcome you all to our Sunday morning roundtable discussion. Today is March 11th, 2018. Go ahead, Florence.
All right, I'm reading from Miscellaneous Writings, Mrs. Eddy's piece on angels. The psalmist says, "He shall give his angels charge over thee." God gives you his spiritual ideas, and in turn they give you daily supplies. Never ask for tomorrow. It is enough that divine love is an ever-present help, and if you wait, never doubting, you will have all you need every moment. What a glorious inheritance is given to us through the understanding of omnipresent love. More we cannot ask, more we do not want, more we cannot have. The sweet assurance is the peace be still to all human fears, to suffering of every sort.
Thank you. Beautiful.
And then, Miscellaneous Writings, Mary Baker Eddy. We today in this classroom are enough to convert the world if we are of one mind, for then the whole world will feel the influence of this mind, as when the earth was without form, and mind spake, and form appeared. So our lesson today, the subject is substance. The golden text, Proverbs 8. I cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. Any comment on that or on the responsive reading? A few of you wrote about it on the forum. I was going to have Colleen, you want to give the definition of substance?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. From Science and Health?
Yes, from Science and Health, with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Quote, question, what is substance? Answer, substance is that which is eternal and incapable of discord and decay. Truth, life, and love are substance, and the Scriptures use this word in Hebrews, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Spirit, the synonym of mind, soul, or God, is the only real substance. The spiritual universe, including individual man, is a compound idea reflecting the divine substance of spirit, end quote.
Thank you. And then the 1828 definition?
Of treasure, Webster's,
treasure, yeah,
okay, treasure, Webster's Dictionary, 1828. Wealth accumulated, particularly a stock or stone of money in reserve, a great quantity of anything collected for future use, something very much valued, great abundance.
Thank you very much. So what does all that mean to us in this golden text?
First of all, would someone like to tell us what the word me refers to? Who is me? What is me?
What?
No. Did anybody read Proverbs 8 to find out what the word me refers to?
Wouldn't it be God?
God's
Nope.
idea?
Nope. You didn't read it.
This is a trick. No,
It's not a trick question. It's very clear. It refers to wisdom.
Yeah. All of Proverbs.
Proverbs 8 is about wisdom. This refers to those who love wisdom. And what does this say about wisdom?
If you love wisdom, you'll inherit wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, it says says that wisdom is divine. It is of God. And it itself is substance.
Well, wisdom is mind, so mind is God. So.
Yep.
So it does go back to God, but it is specifically wisdom. And what does the Bible say to do if you feel you lack wisdom?
Ask for it.
Ask for it, and you will receive it, because that's a pure, well, if your motive is pure, the pure request. The wisdom from on high, the wisdom of God. And as you ask for it and then you obey that wisdom, your treasures will be filled.
Yeah, to keep seeking wisdom. It's not just a one-time thing. Thinking of Solomon, he asked for wisdom in the beginning, he got it, but then he did a lot of unwise things after that.
Exactly.
And his children and grandchildren paid the price. Okay, back to Mary's question.
Well, that's a very good point. And so this lesson is about what? The entire lesson? Heredity. Right. Heredity. And your heredity coming only from God. Now the last, in responsive reading, Pilar wrote on that, then I was by him as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. And what did you say, Pilar?
I wrote that I have many times wrestled with this false belief of heredity, and it's such a comfort to read from Science and Health, page 6356, that in science, man is the offspring of spirit, the beautiful, good, and pure constitute his ancestry. And this really has been very comforting to me to just read this and know that it was in the lesson, and it just was amazing to have that realization.
Thank you. And to realize too that whatever our background was, that we were always with God. And so, Luann, I want you to speak to that. Wake up, everybody. I know we're an hour early, but
I'm not sure what you want.
Luann could say, I mean, in many ways, she's had one of the most horrendous backgrounds anyone I've ever heard.
Yeah, did your background keep you from God? Did it
Definitely not.
Did it hide wisdom from you?
No. I think in coming here, I think I could see that none of that was a part of me to begin with. I thought it was before I came to this church. I thought that I was all caught up in all of that. It was me because it developed in me certain tendencies. But once I got here and learned the truth of that and broke free from it, then it no longer had any hold on me anymore. So I could see that it was just the illusion that I was trapped in. And it wasn't true. I mean, I don't have to, because my parents acted a certain way, I don't have to act that way or, have those same feelings of hate and anger and all that my parents had. Just because they had it doesn't mean I have to have it. I broke free from it.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling and demonstration of God's love, because look what she's gone on to do now. And we're going to have a beautiful painting in on our March, Love is the Liberator by Luann.
And how many people have been blessed by that?
Yes.
And don't we all have backgrounds that human backgrounds that would try to define us, that would, if we're not careful, we would accept as us, limiting us in some way.
Sure, one way or the other is telling us that this human thing is our inheritance.
Right.
It's beautiful, Mrs. Eddy, the way she says it. What glorious inheritance we have. We have to wake up to it.
Exactly. And it's possible because it's true. It's what is true about each one of us. All this human belief, all this human so-called history, if it wasn't good, it's not the truth about you.
And it's not replacing your background with wishful thinking like New Age would have you do.
Thank you. That's important.
Yep. No, you can replace it with the truth. And the truth is provable.
You know, what I find difficult sometimes is to how when dealing with family members or people that have known you for X number of years and so forth, and know some things that you have done or the way you were, they try to put you in this little box, and when you try to demonstrate or say, well, I'm not that person anymore, or I'm not, that's not my background anymore, you find resistance. It's like, no, you have to go into this box because that's what we know about you, and it's a little bit of a struggle there. I found, and especially with family members that have known you, since you were born in this earth, and they insist on attaching traits to you that you don't no longer have, because if you belong to God and your inheritance is from God, you don't have those detrimental traits or old traits.
Well, welcome to the warfare.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And what a grand and glorious warfare it is. And anything that's worthwhile is worth fighting for. It's worth working for, worth striving for. And we've all been there, Pilar. We've all been there.
Oh, no, I'm always trying to step out of the box all the time.
Including Jesus. Read about how they were him in boxes all the time, too.
They were.
Is not this the son of David?
Yeah.
I mean, for heaven's sake, who does he think he is, right?
Uneducated.
So
Yep.
I when I think of that, I think Jesus never took their questions and accusations head on. He went at them usually in a different way. So it's best not to get all flustered if people think one thing about you. Just do what you feel is right in the moment.
A lot of times when I'm dealing with my sister, she'll talk about the past or say things about the past, and I just tell her how wonderful it is that we all can live our lives now. We're not the past. We can move on and have our own lives and be who we were meant to be. So I just kind of stop her in her tracks and say, how wonderful it is that I'm living life now, and it's, we don't need to keep dwelling on the past.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
That's a good way
Excellent.
to turn it around with the truth of being in a kind, polite way, but you're doing it. Certainly don't get involved in that kind of discussion. You can't anymore. There's a penalty because that's disobedience. You can't. You can certainly be the example of how you've changed, and Luann certainly is. I'm sure you are too, Pilar. But it's also why when you ever do go to any of these family things, you've got to have your armor on. You don't just go in there thinking everything's hunky-dory. For just why you described. They see you in a certain way. And you've got to make sure you're aware of that and actively working in your truth.
And when Jesus was teaching the multitudes and his family was looking for him and wanted to know why he wasn't following them, and people said, well, you know, your parents are waiting for you and you're holding them up. What was his response?
Who are my family?
Yeah, who are my brother and sister and mother? It's those who obey.
Who did well of God.
Exactly. So don't be afraid to brush it aside when it comes at you, when you're busy doing God's will.
And that should definitely be your stance. You know, you can love and respect your so-called human family, but they should be more like a friend, like you would treat anyone else, not a personal relationship, not anymore. And if they still have one about you, sometimes you have to step back from that. Personal relationships are very toxic and damaging.
And free yourself from that, from that bondage. You have no obligation to go to a family reunion unless God tells you to go. And he will send you for a reason if it's right for you to go.
I remember having responses like that from aunts, uncles, and cousins. And I would pray before I'd go, and it didn't seem to really help a whole lot. But I remember one time I just felt a lifting of my thoughts, and it was just like I'm above this, and this is not me. This does not affect me, and it stopped. That was the last time that they treated me in a less than perfect way.
Thank you.
And the only reality is now.
That's right.
Right now.
That's right. But if you have a mental attitude, it's something, a steel, we call it, inside you, that you're not going to allow it or accept it, because it's all mental, you'll be surprised what can be done. Sometimes you don't even have to say anything.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. Especially with my one daughter, I have to be quiet. And you know that they feel it because of the way their behavior changes.
Right.
Good. That's good.
It's when our thought changes, when we really change, that's when they get it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
And you don't have to change anybody else.
No.
God will do that. All you have to do is be yourself,
As God made you.
your true self.
Noticed that the other day when my sister was at my shop, is that I just stayed quiet, which is usually what I do because she just rattles on, and I just stayed quiet. And then, like after a second, she realized that I wasn't responding to what she was saying, and she said, "Well, that's all in the past." She says, "We're in the future now," and said, "Well, we're not going to talk about the past. Let's just be positive instead of negative." And I hadn't even said a word to her. But
And that's why the statement, silence is golden. If you're silent and you're knowing the truth while you're silent, not taking in the error, but knowing the truth, they'll get it mentally.
yeah.
Good for you.
And I was asking God to fill her heart with the truth, and she just stopped in her tracks. It was wonderful.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I thought that came to... Go ahead.
I was going to say I unfortunately have the issue that I am not seeing the other person correctly, which they've come to realize in the last month. They really have to change that.
I don't know if this is the right answer to that, but what I was going to say, what had come to me, I recently had to go to a small family gathering, and sometimes maybe less than pleasant thoughts come, but I was asking what should I think? What do I know as I go into this? And the thought that came was, instead of thinking, I'm going to see my aunt, I'm going to see my cousin, no, I'm going to see God's daughter. I'm going to see God's son, and to kind of clip that human tie and see them, this is their true identity, and to disattach whatever I have that human seeming tie to them and anything that goes with it. So that helped me. The more I could focus on that as I was going about seeing everyone.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Well, and that's the right answer, isn't it?
We are all brothers and sisters in Christ, and sometimes you have to leave things and people in the past behind. Sometimes, at least for a while. You know, I was reading recently The Allegory by Mrs. Eddy, and she says that. And if you do, if it comes to that, God will direct you, and God will help you with it. It says that love will remove whatever obstructs your pathway, and that will start to happen.
And what does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? What does it mean to love someone else?
To see them not as material. Mrs.
Right.
Eddy says that. The best way to love is to do that.
Right. So seeing others as the child of God rather than as an aunt or an uncle or a human relative is to love them, divinely love them. And if you don't see them correctly, you're not loving them.
No, you won't. You won't. And that is the real way to love them. If you ever think, well, if you don't spend as much time with them or talk to them on the phone so much, that doesn't mean you don't love them. In fact, it can mean you love them all the more. Better to have this right concept of them and hold to it than to go down to the level of the human chit-chat and all the other stuff that goes with that. That's not really loving them. That's just their level. So rise above it, and you will see wonderful things happen, wonderful healings. And maybe if you don't see someone for a time, well, if that's God's plan, it can only bless everyone concerned. And I know in my own experience, people I haven't seen for a time, then after time, they come back. And it's a better relationship because God is in the middle of it. And I've grown, and they have too.
And we've all had to do this. We've all experienced in one way or another. When you change, when you grow spiritually, when you see yourself correctly, when you begin to see others correctly, it's a process takes place, and God takes over in your experience. And it's the best thing that you can do for everyone around you. It's progress, and it shows, too, that you're working daily, which we all should be, with the 3 daily duties. And that one, a rule for motives and acts, neither animosity nor what?
Personal attachment.
Yes. Remember, we're working with this, not just to say it, oh, isn't that nice? Wow, those are nice words. And that means you've got to work it. You've got to live it. And this is how true healing takes place.
Mere personal attachment's the worst.
It really is. And we've all been there. So, and if you're still there, you can get out of it.
I just wanted to add one other thing about the past. I've had this rule for myself and also for my kids when we're together, not to bring up the past unless there's a lesson to be learned from it. That's usually really helpful. And I actually only got that idea because of the testimony meeting.
Thank you.
That's a good rule.
Yeah. A very good rule. Otherwise, you can just be talking about all kinds of things that are not constructive at all and will bring you down.
One thing that's helped me about the past is the passage from the hymn. All the good the past hath had remains to make our own time glad. Only the good remains.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I search the future and the past. It's a beautiful hymn to know. If you don't know it, make it your friend.
And that's what it means to give the past to God.
And we are required to do that. And knowing our substance is spiritual, and knowing and declaring daily that God is your father and mother. He's the father and mother of us all. He's the father and mother of your children. This is certainly something, as a scientist, you have to be doing. You don't fudge around with this. It should be part of your daily regimen. You know, Parthens, who had trained for a while to be a doctor, he came in really hard on this in the forum, on the medical beliefs, and he quoted in Science and Health from the trial, "It was fear who handcuffed mortal man and would now punish him. You have left mortal man no alternative. He must obey your law, fear its consequences, and be punished for his fear." Well, thanks a lot. That's the court of error, and that's when you put yourself into the court of error by all these believing that you were created humanly and that you're a father or mother of a child and all of this stuff, the Adam dream. You're putting yourself in the court of error, and the more you think about it, the more trouble you will have. And I thought in the lesson, it brings out proportion. In proportion to our understanding of Christian Science, we are freed from the belief of heredity. In proportion, how much time do you spend knowing the truth about yourself in proportion to thinking you're a mere mortal with all kinds of trouble and parents that did you wrong or even parents that did you right? Your only parent is your father, mother, God, your divine parent, and that's what you should be knowing. And then again, in proportion as matter loses the human sense, all entity is man. In that proportion does man become its master. How much time are you spending thinking of yourself in the material body? Or are you knowing your substance is of spirit and you are a divine being? You exist now, as Mike brought out on the forum, never born into matter, never dying out of it, existing forever, immortal. Spend your time on that, and your proportion will be in the right scale and not the wrong one.
I found a wonderful paragraph in the platform from Mrs. Eddy. I'll read the first and last sentence of it. Mortal man was and is God's image or idea, even the infinite expression of infinite mind. Immortal man is coexistent and co-eternal with that mind. Then mortal man is not and never was material, but always spiritual, eternal. And I found this after I had written that, and I would have liked to have included that because that's the truth, and she puts it so nicely.
Thank you. And Linda took up 14 in Science and Health. Correct material belief by spiritual understanding, and spirit will form you anew. So what if you're having a problem with this old material body of yours? What does the word correct mean, Linda?
From Webster's 1828, it meant to set right, remove faults or errors, to bring to the standard of truth.
Thank you. This is usually not a process that's done overnight. Sometimes it can be. You can have a grand realization, but sometimes it takes work. It took you, Mrs. Evans used to say, it took you a while to get into that situation. It might take you a while to get out of it. But believe me, keep every day working at it. Have the goal in mind. Because if you have one day where you're working at it and the next day you spend all day complaining and whining, well, you're just, what does she say? You're the pendulum swinging back and forth, back and forth. And then you wonder why you haven't made any progress. Duh, as they say.
You stayed in between.
Yeah. So keep at it. Day by day.
I know for me, I've noticed each healing seems to require multiple lessons before that healing comes about. So I just like that idea. As we learn these things, we got to learn each bit of it.
then she says, you're higher on the scale of being, aren't you? That's true healing. And that's knowing that 2 plus 2 is 4, so you can't ever go back to the old belief. And we had a wonderful Bible study yesterday. If you missed it, please listen. And the definition of belief, which was read from Watch's Prayers and Arguments, animal magnetism is starting a belief, getting others to fear it, until evil is done to those who hold the belief. And a law is made, and the era goes on, gaining ground, until the serpent becomes what?
Dragon.
Yes. And you see, this is what has happened with the belief of heredity. I almost have to laugh now, because now you're supposed to cut out organs in your body. You're supposed to get rid of things. If you were passed some DNA, you know, and your parents had it, and this could cause this, and that could go off with off with your head. I don't know what'll be left of you, but and now and now, because of all the medical advances, so-called advances, you know, they can test every little inch of your entire body to decide how good or how bad you are. And so it is this big dragon, and everybody's worshiping, and oh my goodness, oh gosh, what, you know, my Aunt Tilly, dear Aunt Tilly, she has this, and I'll have this, therefore I have to cut out all this stuff out of my body, so I'll never get it. Well, this is the dragon, and it's belief. So you go back to what you are knowing to be the truth, that your heredity is only from God. I've told this story. Mrs. Evans used to tell it. And it's a good example. Of course, it's not a true story, but it's an illustration of a prince. Well, he was born to a king and queen in a lovely palace, a castle, in which all the needs were met. And then a gypsy. He was stolen by gypsies. And he went, do you know it, Sharon?
Well, I bet that it is a story. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, if you know it, go ahead.
No, I don't remember, but it rang a bell, yes.
Right. Okay, so the gypsies raised him, and of course he was impoverished.
He was impoverished. He thought he was a gypsy, and that was the life that he knew. He didn't know anything better, so he lived in poverty until misery, until one day, one of the king's knights or whatever found him and recognized that he looked like his father, the king.
Well, no, the king knew he was missing. He had the knight go out searching, and they were searching for him, like the good shepherd, searching for his children, his sheep. So they found him and brought him home. And he discovered, and this, I have never met a gypsy, so please, this is no offense to gypsies. It was just the illustration. So anyway, he found out that he was the son of who?
The king.
The king. The son of the king, and so are you, or the daughter of the king. And all the wonderful inheritance of that king was and is his. He was no longer impoverished or in misery. And he woke up, and this is how it should be when we really get to understand science. We become the daughter of the king or the son of the king, with a capital K, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Never forget that. So who would want this earthly inheritance? I sure don't. I prefer to be the daughter of the king. You know, I found this week, and this was in Watch's Prayers and Arguments, and I love it. So, my health, strength, life, intelligence, action, etc., are subject to the governing and controlling power of the divine mind, and to nothing else, for there is no other power. That's what you are as the son or daughter of the king. Your health, your strength, your life, intelligence, your action, they are subject to the governing and controlling power of the one mind, and to nothing else. Claim that, because there is no other power. And Florence brought this out yesterday, too, but Again, no other power. The belief that man has any other substance or mind is not spiritual and breaks the first commandment. Thou shalt have one God, one mind. So remember, when you think your health is based on something other than God, your action, your intelligence, your strength is based on something other than your Heavenly Father, you are breaking the first commandment. You are being disobedient, and that is why you are having the problem until you wake up to the truth. Now, Elizabeth, you tell us, is she here? You spoke, no? Elizabeth. Okay, well, she spoke to in the Bible, and it shall come to pass, so will I watch over them, to build and to plant, saith the Lord. And in those days they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten a sour grape, and the children's teeth are set on edge. And she admitted she never knew what that meant. So, Linda?
Yeah, one of the things she said right here, do you want me to read the whole thing or just parts of it?
Whatever is relevant.
Well, one part here she said that they use many of their problems to blame on their fathers as an excuse for repeating the sins instead of repenting. I thought
that's very good. Yes. Yes, and then she quoted, because what does Mrs. Eddy say in citation 7? Anyone want to read it to us?
It should no longer be said in Israel that the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. Sympathy with error should disappear. The transfer of the thoughts of one erring mind to another, science renders impossible. No excuses.
So there you are. It's wonderful, Mrs. Eddy's interpretation of the scripture.
Thinking about that, sympathy with error should disappear. Yes. When you play one string on a guitar, it vibrates the other string. So that's called sympathetic vibration. So I just was thinking about that.
Wow. Great illustration. Thank you. And to just finish what we talked about with what Linda said about correcting material belief by spiritual understanding, spirit will form you anew. Remember, as we were saying, you work on this day by day, and you will be formed anew. Whatever's troubling you will change. That's the power of God in this truth. And how little, when you think about it, we've only scratched the surface because we've been so delved into these beliefs.
I think it was very powerful when you said yesterday, somebody said during that they were looking for a cause for this blind man. And I think that's what the whole world does. It really made me realize that looking into psychology, why did the shooter do what he did? Well, he had a bad family or this or that, and it's constantly looking for a reason. And then Jesus stopped it completely and just said, it's like the king, too. He could have said, well, the gypsies raised me, and I'm miserable because of this, and I don't have that, when all it was is misconception. He was the son of the king. It's just very powerful to me. I think it's really a big deal, what we're learning.
Thank you. It's so true. Absolutely. It's true in raising your children. This is a sympathy part, too. Your child has some problem. So you're, oh, dear, poor guy, or whatever. Oh, and I bet it was because, there's bad parenting going on. Or, oh, gosh, I bet it was, he had this sickness for 10 months, and that's why he's this way. Well, what have you done in saying all that? What are you doing?
Being sympathetic was there.
You're making your feel. You're laying it on a person.
You're putting it on them.
You are. You're putting it on them. You're giving it a cause with not a capital C, but a little c, a mortal mind cause. And so you are fueling the fire. And I give that illustration with children because it's very easy to do with children, but you can do it with yourself, your husband, a friend, all kinds of situations. But if you say there is no cause for this, hit it at the path, because God is the only cause and creator, then you start to get somewhere. And I know because I did this to my children, and then when I stopped doing it and saw what I was doing, due to the practitioner here, the results were amazing. Don't give it a reason. This is what we talked about yesterday. Don't try to figure out why 2 plus 2 equals 5. It doesn't. That's all you need to know. It does not.
So don't have any sympathy for it.
Compassion, yes. Sympathy, no. And the other, who would like to read number 4? Carol.
The transmission of disease or of certain idiosyncrasies of mortal mind would be impossible if this great fact of being were learned, namely, that nothing inharmonious can enter being, for life is God. Heredity is a prolific subject for mortal belief to pin theories upon, but if we learn that nothing is real but the right, we shall have no dangerous inheritances, and fleshly ills will disappear.
Isn't that just wonderful? And that nothing inharmonious can enter being, for life is God. This is why you start your day knowing that your life is in God. Nothing inharmonious can enter being. That means your body. It means your home. It means your church. It means our country, our world. Because life is God. If you're knowing that, how could something inharmonious enter? It would be zapped.
And if you see something inharmonious, what are you seeing? An illusion. You are not seeing the truth.
Well, you could be seeing an error.
Well, that's a lie.
Yeah, you're seeing a lie.
Yeah,
you're seeing your vision is clouded. Don't accept the illusion. This is why. This is being a Christian Scientist. Stand porter at the door of thought. Try the spirits. Are they of God or are they an illusion? This is powerful, folks. This will revolutionize the world if you do this, if we do this. And it doesn't take a lot of people to do this.
Because it's the truth, and one with God is the majority. And, in the Bible where it says, "For ye have not received the spirit of bondage, again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father." So what is the solution to fear in this statement?
Going to God.
To know that God is your Father, Mother, all.
Thank you.
That you have no other inheritance. That God, perfect love, loves you, and therefore you have nothing to fear.
But you've got to know it, like Gary just said it, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes. You have to know it. And whenever you're fearing, you can cry out, Father, and claim this inheritance. And you will be free of this bondage. But it is a deep statement. It's not just light. Something very important to understand. Knowing God is your father and mother, and you have no fleshly inheritance, is a tremendous fact of your being. So let's see. Today,
can I?
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say the thing that I missed on the paragraph on the stand porter to the door of thought was how she finished, Mrs. Eddy finished as it was, through divine help, we can forbid this entrance.
Yes.
Yep.
Through divine help. And that's where we turn to God always, our Father. And as I said, multiple times Jesus does not say God. He says Father. He knew that relationship. And as we just went over during this class, he knew who his brothers and sisters and mother and father were. And it is a basic precept in science. You can't start thinking you were a father or a mother, or that someone else was your father and mother, and think you'll have any success in science. And if you have an inkling of that, cleanse yourself of it. Your ancestry is the beautiful, the good, and the pure, and that's all. Okay, we're going to end with Collectania by Mrs. Eddy.
A true science treatment does not consist of treating a disordered body or person, but does consist of destroying the error which is wholly mental. 2 plus 2 equals 5 illustrates how unscientific it is to look at a blackboard and see 2 times 2 equals 5, and then realize that 2 times 2 equals 4. Then turn to the blackboard to see if it has changed on the board ere we believe the manifestation is complete. Never look at the body to see if the error has disappeared. If we do, we see the error as physical, or belonging to the individual, or see that man has a material body. Then we do not trust scientifically. Now you know that 1 and 1 are 2, 2 and 2 are 4, 3 times 3 are 9. You know that much of the truth of numbers, and it is all powerful, no matter how much error you know. As it is with numbers, so it is with science. The little you do know is real and reflects God, no matter how much error you know that you have not worked out of yet. For as you know more and more of truth, all error disappears from thought. No error can bind us beyond our belief in it.
Isn't that wonderful? So we will now go ahead and have a powerful service, and we will go forth from now on knowing that God is our Father and Mother, and He's the only one, and our inheritance is from Him. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.